Welcome back to a brand new video From the Shed End. As always, thank you very much for joining. Before we get into the video, make sure you go and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up and make sure you leave your comments in the comment section below. And also the Linktree link in the description, hit that as well. That will take you to all our social accounts and all our previous podcast episodes as well. So before you do anything else, make sure you do all those things for me and let's get the numbers up in terms of subscribers. Let's start with some good news because it hasn't been the best season for Chelsea at all this season. So let's start with some brilliant news in Ben Chilwell, who has decided he wants to extend his contract, and Chelsea are happy to do so with the performances that he's been putting in since his injury at the back end of last season and this season as well. It's good to see some good news coming out of Cobham at last. So Ben Chilwell, as reported by The Athletic, David Ornstein, has basically said that Ben Chilwell does want to continue his time at Chelsea. He's committed his future to the club by signing a new 4-year deal. It will prolong the wing-back stay from 2025 until 2027. Obviously, that does mean a lot for Chelsea, for Ben Chilwell. For Chelsea, for Ben Chilwell. It also means a lot for Manchester City, who were very hot on the tails of Chelsea trying to prize away Chilwell to the Etihad during the summer. So it looks like that's been resolved. It looks like he's committed to the club. He wants to stay. He's happy to remain at the club as well. And, you have to remember, we did get him for 50 million from Leicester, but he's one of those ones that helps us win the Champions League. He went on a year later after leaving Leicester to win the Champions League and do amazing things before the injury, and he's come back with some really good form, very impressive performances under Graham Potter, as well as now hopefully Frank Lampard as well. But we're seeing something good in that left-sided space. What does that mean now for Cucurella? I mean, Cucurella obviously only came in recently, but hasn't really been putting in the performances that we would have expected to have seen from someone who is clearly, a Graham Potter signing, or was a Graham Potter signing, someone that we thought was going to come in and give Chilwell some extra protection around that space in terms of left back and left wing back, or even the left centre back, which is where Graham Potter decided to use him. We do have Ian Maatsen as well, who's a player that I'm really, really hopeful we keep hold of. There's a lot of talk about Maatsen potentially staying at Burnley. I think 30 million has been batted around in terms of that region for him to stay at Burnley on a permanent deal. I'd love to keep him at the club. I think he's got a really bright future. I've watched him a lot for Burnley this season as well. He's been a massive part of their season to get promoted back to the Premier League as well. But Cucurella, for me, is someone that just hasn't fitted into the Chelsea way of playing. He doesn't look like he's going to fit in at all. Whether that's left back, left wing back, left centre back, it doesn't really matter. He doesn't seem to be the player that we thought he was going to be under Graham Potter, and hopefully under a new manager when they're announced on a permanent basis. But it does seem that obviously Chilwell going forward, signing a new deal, the owners don't want to be in that situation where the previous owners or ownership was in the same position with Rudiger, with Christensen, allowing these top players who realistically you want to keep at the club, leaving them to go into that final year of their deal. You have to credit the ownership that we've got now for that, because they are trying to tie down certain players to these contracts to allow them to make sure that they are at the club for as long as possible. I'm all for it. I'm all for that. And I think Ben Chilwell, as I said, deserves that. He got his first cap for England 2021 in November against Ukraine. So, he's doing well. He's doing well internationally. He's doing well in terms of club. And I think he's going to be pivotal in terms of how we line up for tomorrow's game, which we're going to get onto later as well. But that was some good news to start off with. Also, some more good news. I'm going to keep it on the good news for now. I'm not going to say that it's going to be like this for the whole video, but we're definitely going to keep on the good news train for now. Thiago Silva back in training. I don't know if you did, but I watched a clip this morning of the Chelsea players training at Cobham before they depart for Madrid. He was also training yesterday as well. There's a couple of pictures that were posted on our social accounts of Thiago Silva in training. Also, Mason Mount, who missed the game against Wolverhampton Wanderers last weekend, is also back in training. So you would think with a game of this magnitude against Real Madrid coming up tomorrow, they're both back in training. I would have expected Mason Mount potentially to start against Wolves had he not got injured. And I think Frank Lampard, obviously a favourite of Mason Mount, will try and utilise him in the team again. And I think he'll start tomorrow. We're going to get onto the team news shortly. But to have those two back in training is brilliant news for us. it means hopefully we can go forward. I mean, we've almost actually got a clean bill of health. We've got everyone back that we need, bar Armando Broja. So I'm happy. I'm happy with that. I mean, this season, as I keep saying, is a write-off. We haven't really got anything to play for. But if we can get the likes of Thiago Silva back, who I don't think has played since the Tottenham game in February when he injured his knee and the tendons and the ligaments in his knee. So it is a massive long comeback for him. But he has obviously been training, well before even Graham Potter. I think when Graham Potter was given the boys a couple of days off, Thiago Silva was still in training at home. There was pictures that he posted on his Instagram where he was training at home. So he's been training for a while now. And I think this is now for us our last ditch attempt at silverware. I think we have to play our strongest squad, which we're going to get onto as well shortly. But let's move on to some crazy news that came out of nowhere for me this morning. And I haven't really been following the story as closely as potentially I should have done with the news that's come out. But the news that broke, Simon Phillips reported on it this morning. Christopher Vivell met with Gavi's agent Ivan de la Pena several weeks ago in Madrid per Diario AS in order to communicate the desire to sign him from Barcelona. The meeting went well and another is scheduled for the coming weeks as Chelsea seek to advance in talks. What a crazy story. Obviously, Gavi is a player that is currently technically a free agent at Barcelona due to the contractual issues that Barcelona are having with the player at the moment. There was a clause apparently in his contract that allows him to leave on a free. I don't think they can register. He's unregistered, I think, for Barcelona at the moment. He's technically back in the youth team at Barca, I believe. This is a player that is very much a like for like in terms of what Mason Mount is currently offering us in the team. Now, it's a strange one because I think, obviously we talk about Mason Mount, the contract issues. Chelsea have offered a contract to Mason Mount. He's stalled. He doesn't really want to sign it. My only thinking or thought process behind bringing in Gavi is potentially if we do lose Mason Mount, we've got someone in already in line. Do we need to sign him? I don't think we do. I think there's a lot more alarming areas in terms of a defensive midfielder, in terms of a goalkeeper, in terms of Ivan Toney, who actually scored again last weekend. I keep saying it. Ivan Toney's the one for us, but we need a striker in, whoever that's going to be. And for me personally, those should be top of our list in terms of who we actually try and go out to get. We need to go and get a striker. We need to go and get a goalkeeper. We need to go and get a defensive midfielder, someone that's going to be able to cover for Kante, who might get injured again next season, someone that can also help out Enzo Fernandez, allowing him to push further up the field as well. So there's so many things for me that are more pressing in terms of trying to bring in Gavi from Barcelona. Now, should Mason Mount stay and we still sign a player from Barcelona that technically wants to stay at Barcelona, I don't see the logic in that at all. I think it's such a counterproductive thing. And this goes back to my thought process again around the ownership, around the owners. Do they actually know what they're doing? Do they actually know what direction we want to go in as a club? Because at the moment, it just seems very trial and error. It seems very much, we'll try this, we'll do this. Maybe this might work. Let's add another player here. Let's go and get that person. It just seems a very sort of, cheat code on Football Manager. You've got unlimited resources. You can do what you want. Bit of a strange one for me, if I'm honest. But look, if we keep Mason Mount, I'm pretty sure this story that Simon Phillips is reporting on social media will be put to bed. We'll keep Mason Mount. My other theory is, I know Gavi is a player that is technically been managed under Luis Enrique in the national squad for Spain. Has Luis Enrique alerted Chelsea to this idea that if he takes the job, if he wants the job, if he gets the job, I want to play like him in my team? So is that maybe to sweeten Luis Enrique, very much like we did with Graham Potter in terms of Cucurella? But this seems like a sort of one that's come out of nowhere. I think maybe if we do get Luis Enrique, it might make some more sense slightly to me. But I don't get why we would sign him if we're going to keep Mason Mount. So there's a lot that I think will come out of this story. I don't want to touch on it too much until we know a bit more, but it's a strange one that's come out of nowhere. Let's move over to Real Madrid tomorrow. Bernabeu, 8 o'clock. Theo's probably travelling as I'm recording this, or he's packing his case, he's getting himself to the airport, he's flying over to Spain. So make sure you hit the social accounts, make sure you check out the videos that Theo will be posting, all the pictures, all the content whilst he's in Madrid. What can I say? Real Madrid, now this is a team that we have to remember we beat 3-2, if I remember correctly. Timo Werner and Antonio Rudiger on the score sheet that day. Can't remember the third player, but we won 3-2 at the Bernabeu. I also think we've done this again. I think let's double check. I'm sure we've beat them before as well. We did. We drew 1-1. We didn't beat them, but we beat them last April. This is the 3rd April we're playing them. Obviously, we're only doing the knockouts, but the 27th of April, 21, we drew 1-1. Goals by Karim Benzema for Real Madrid and Christian Pulisic for Chelsea. Then 3-2. We beat them. Mason Mount scored. Antonio Rudiger. We had a goal disallowed, Marcos Alonso, and then Timo Werner went on to get the winner for us as well. But obviously, we do know that there's threats from Real Madrid that they will pose in this game. And, we have to talk about their attacking threats, Valverde, Vinicius Jr., Karim Benzema. They could rip us a new one if we're not careful. If we're not careful, they'll rip us a new one. And this is a moment for Frank Lampard to come into the team, no expectation, the underdogs. We've probably got the upper hand on that basis, because we're going into this game and we're almost going in with the intention that we're going to get beat. And I think that will work in our favour. I think when with the pressure isn't on us, we're not expected to beat a Dinamo Zagreb and how we lost to them in that opening game of the Champions League campaign this season. But when you think back to it, realistically, we should be putting up a fight in the Champions League. We've got this far. We've got through the group stages. We've got through, some difficult games against Dortmund, against AC Milan. And we've got this far in the tournament now. So I think to not just go there with the intention of losing would be crazy to me. I personally think we've got every fight. Yes, they have a good squad in terms of Real Madrid and how they might line up. You think back to Tchouaméni, Toni Kroos, Luka Modric, Camavinga, Rudiger, Milito, Carvajal. You have a really good squad, and obviously they have a really good bench. Maybe Eden Hazard might get a run out and potentially give us some trouble. But defensively, again, for us, we have to be switched on. And I think when you look back to the game against Wolves, how poor we were, and I know Frank loves a 4-3-3, loves a 4 at the back. Frank Lampard, I'm looking straight down the camera. Please do not play 4 at the back against Real Madrid. Please don't do it. Because if you do, Vinicius Jr., Valverde, Karim Benzema, it's going to be Alton Towers for them. It's going to be fun and games for them. The whole game. You can't play 4 at the back against Real Madrid. We will get turned over. We do need that extra centre-back, in my opinion, to cover for James or for Ben Chilwell. Let's get the lineup up. So I've gone for Kepa in goal. For me, it's a toss of a coin. Who do you put in goal? Reece James is right wing back. Koulibaly, Thiago Silva, Wesley Fofana. Obviously, Badiashile is not in the Champions League squad, so it kind of results us to who we can have in the team. Ben Chilwell as left wing back. N'Golo Kante and Enzo Fernandez as my 2 in midfield. I think that would work perfectly. We have to use Kante. He was rested against, it wasn't even in the match day squad on Saturday against Wolves, so you would assume he's not injured. He was rested. And I did mention, obviously, the likes of Fofana and Koulibaly and Kante are all continuing with Ramadan at the moment, so they are fasting. So we have to take that into consideration. But you would think that Kante, in a big game like this, would want to play, has been rested, has been, in the recuperating as well during the time of not being able to eat and drink and still having to train as well. Mason Mount going forward, I've put him back in the team. I've got Mason Mount with a forward look of Mason Mount, Kai Havertz and João Felix. Now, Kai Havertz for me is a forced option. There is another option. Do you put Felix as a false 9? Do you put Mudryk on the left and Mason Mount on the right? That was my other thinking, but I've gone for Mason Mount on the left side, João Felix on the right side with Kai Havertz as the false 9. And to be honest, I will give Kai Havertz his credit. When he does need to turn that switch on, he does at times tend to do it in these big games. And he does give you these big moments in games where he'll try and do something. And I think if we go for 5 at the back in terms of the wing backs as well, that system will work for us perfectly. It should. The one thing we have to do is keep that left side of Vinicius Jr., quiet. We have to keep that side quiet with Benzema in the middle, because if we don't, you look at Toni Kroos potentially down that left side as well. If we don't keep that quiet, so Reece James, Koulibaly, Thiago Silva, that side of the pitch has to be tight as anything. Because if we don't, we leave too much space behind us. Obviously, Reece James is going to be trying to get forward, hopefully as much as possible. It will allow Chilwell to do the same down at the left side as well. But we have to go with those three centre-backs for the extra protection for Kepa. You know, Enzo as well has to have a brilliant game in midfield with Kante. Part of me thinks he's going to not go with a back five. He'll go with a back four with the three of Kovacic, Fernandes and Kante in midfield. I hope he does not do that, because if he does, we're in for a long night. We're in for a long night. We have to remember this is just the first leg. So we have to, yes, there's no away goal ruling, but we have to try and keep the scoreline down to a minimum and try and bring something back to Stamford Bridge. Even if it's a 1-0 to Real Madrid, that's okay. We've got a second leg. This is only the first half. This is half time. It'll be half time in a 2-leg race. So we have to just keep the scoreline down. You know, we saw what Barcelona did to Real Madrid did to Barcelona not too long ago. I think Benzema walked away with a hat-trick. We can't allow that. We cannot allow that. We have to be on top of Real Madrid. It's a tough ground to go to. You know, I'm hoping we play over back five. It'd be interesting as well, because obviously we don't have any recognised striker. We don't have Aubameyang in the team. Again, another player that was not registered for the Champions League. A crazy decision that was made. And one of the things that I don't think I mentioned on the Wolves review was, you know, Aubameyang coming back into the team clearly tells us that it was Graham Potter's decision not to include him in all those matches he could have played him in the Premier League. And also, it was his decision to leave him out of the Champions League squad because he's back in the team with Frank Lampard. So I think it's a strange one for me personally. I think you got to have a recognised striker, even if you're not going to play him. At least put him in the team, the squad. So at least you've got an option to play him in games like this where he probably thrive. But Kai Havertz has to do a job. I don't want to see, you know, the weak Kai Havertz that we've been seeing, the one that gets pushed off the ball by Rudiger, who knows the team inside and out. Tchouaméni. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that. I want to see us be able to go forward and press as well. Press. Everyone has to press as a team. Work those channels. Use the space. The key things that I would expect Frank Lampard to be working on is use the space. We're coming up against one of the best managers, Carlo Ancelotti, in the world. We can't afford to be playing like we did against Wolves. So we have to just keep the scoreline down. Am I expecting a win? Possibly not, I'm going to be honest. But we do thrive better, I believe, under these sort of circumstances where we are the underdogs. We're not expected to win it. We can go and get something. You think back to AC Milan, you think back to the Dortmund games. You know, we weren't necessarily expected to win or to dominate possession, but we did. We've done really well. And I think we can do that. You know, I think we really can. I'm going to end this video by saying it's so strange because Thomas Tuchel took over Frank Lampard when he was sacked and we won the Champions League. Thomas Tuchel's been sacked, albeit with Graham Potter in between. Frank Lampard's now in charge. The roles have reversed. Can Frank Lampard take us to the final and win the Champions League? What a story it would be. But I'm also going to caveat that with, I still want a proper manager announced very soon. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. What lineup would you go with? What will your score predictions be for Real Madrid tomorrow? As I said, hit that Linktree link. I'm sure Theo will be posting a lot of Instagram and Twitter content for us over the next 24 hours whilst he's in Spain. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back with a match review after the game. Thanks for watching.